In August, the garden was looking glorious. One particular area that did well in August was in the veg patch, the kitchen garden, because stuff was starting to come to maturity. The harvest had begun. Back in April, I'd planted seed potatoes in 2 areas. First, several rows in my raised beds. I planted some more in a set of 3 potato grow bags, just to see how much they would yield. By the time August came round, it was time for the big reveal. There's a good amount of foliage on each of these bags, so the indication would be that there might be a decent crop underneath. I have to say, I was quite surprised how many potatoes came out of those bags with so few put in there. Oh, look. There we are. My heart was in my mouth when I did it, because I didn't check before I did it in front of you, and I knocked it out. But there could only be half a dozen in here. Well, there weren't, as you saw. There were absolutely loads. And in future, if I'm ever strapped for space, I'll be growing a few spuds in these potato bags. Most folks say, oh, I haven't got room for potatoes. They take up far too much space. Look at those 3 bags and look at what I got out of them. They're sitting now in that bag down there which says seed potatoes, because potatoes like to be stored in the dark in a cool place. And my onions, which also yielded well, they're hanging up just over there, and they will see us right the way through till spring. In the rest of the garden, there were 2 flowering plants that were a real highlight this year. 2 raised beds in which I have agapanthus, a variety called Katharina. They're about 3 feet tall, glorious sky blue umbels of flower. Oh, I do like those every year. And just across the way from them, the hydrangea, Annabelle. These socking great mop heads of creamy white that start off green, then go white, and then go green again, and then they go crisp in winter. And I leave those crisp heads on right the way through. They're great when they're frosted, and I think they remind me that there are beauties to be had in autumn as well. In September, I decided I would do something I've never done before. I would create the smallest possible garden. On a different patio to the containers, I found a corner, and using 3 planters of different heights and a variety of plants, I put together a tiny patio garden that was just 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters. And it worked. It just goes to prove that whether you're gardening in stately acres or 3 small troughs, proportion, texture, structure and colour are the things that still work well if you get them right. Those troughs carried on looking good right the way through to November, unbelievably. The key, again, was the same with the other container plants. Foliage is every bit as important as flowers because it's continuous, it stays there, and the flowers pop up over it, given a really good background. So for me, the balance between foliage and flowers is key. October is a time when the garden really begins to change. Autumn's coming. But I had one huge surprise this year. I have 2 narrow borders running up to the greenhouse. Normally I put annuals in there. I had cosmos the year before and they weren't terribly good. So this year, anything I had left over perennials and annuals, I put in those two borders. A lot of them were the shrubby salvias. I'd taken loads of cuttings, I just bunged them in. I did try and mirror them so each side was the same as on the other. And of all the things in the garden this year, those two narrow borders offered me the greatest surprise. I'd thought of them as just a chance to use things I was otherwise not going to have a spot for, and they turned out to be absolutely sensational. And just goes to show, always try something different, because you're never quite sure how well it's going to work. What I did have there, which was a real sheet anchor for that border, is these sentinels of cones of yew going all the way up. And if you've got a patch of garden which is just a bit sort of messy, get yourself a bit of structure in there, a bit of formality if you like, just something which is mirrored and regular. Then you've got a bit of structure in between which you can plant a sort of billowing chaos. By November, the garden had really changed, with the warm colours of autumn coming to the fore. Now, my kitchen garden is a series of large raised beds, plenty of room to grow crops. But for the first time this year, I got myself a raised planter that was about 2.5 feet by 3.5 feet. And I began the season by sowing in April salad leaves, little rows of different kinds. I can't tell you the pleasure it gave me having this miniature garden which yielded an enormous amount of salads, and when one row went, I sowed another row, and on it went through the summer, always having fresh salad leaves to use. And then, in October, it was time for the next crop, overwintering onions and garlic. I have high hopes now of my little raised bed producing some onions come next June, red and yellow, a bit of garlic too for midsummer. And here they are, me onions and me garlic, still thriving. Do you know, this planter has been special in spite of the fact that it's really simple. It's small, easily managed and off the ground, means you're much more likely to come and potter in it. The other thing is, it tends to keep rabbits, rodents and vermin away from it, and the birds too seem to leave it alone. So having a little planter like this has been one of the revelations this year. Well done, little planter. And finally, in December, we reach the end of the gardening year, when many gardeners might shut up shop and come inside, not venturing out again until the spring. That's not for me. I've planted a garden with things that give me pleasure right the way through the winter. Birch trees glow wonderfully white in winter, but only because I give them a wash and brush up a couple of times a year. By that, I mean I go out with a bucket and a cloth and I rub down the bark and get off that green slime which otherwise dulls them. And once they've dried out, they absolutely ping. So on a really dreary autumn or winter's day, the white bark of the birch tree sings out of the gloom. There are other trees with glorious bark too. The Mount Atlas cedar, which I planted when it was about 6 feet tall, is now doing really well, and those blue-grey needles again give me a wonderful colour variation in the winter gloom. The branches of cherry trees, which grow almost horizontally out from the trunk, provide a wonderful tracery through which you can see the sky, whether it's blue in winter or that dull leaden grey. Plant habit and form becomes more noticeable when there aren't many leaves and flowers around. It makes us look more closely and marvel at nature and the variety on offer. It's been a delight for me sharing my passion for gardening with you over this last year, but there's still lots more to come, and I hope you'll stick with me as we tackle a new year to prove that without a garden, life isn't nearly as enriching as it would otherwise be. Until then, whatever the weather, enjoy your garden. I'm adding new videos every week, so if you want to make the most of your garden with all these top tips, subscribe now.